So again, Rabbi said, let's just summarize the Shakal V'Tari here. Rabba Bar Rav Huna was vacillating about the case of Motzi Ishto Machvas Shera. If he went ahead and against the Chachamim, he remarried her, would we force a divorce? And Rabba Bar Rav Nachman responded, why not equate this with our case, where there was in our Mishnah a rumor about someone that he was a nitan, that he had a relationship with her. The husband divorced her. The nitan is not allowed to marry her, and then he went ahead and he married her. Is yotzi, right? Afal pisha kanas yotzi. Amalei. So now Rabba comes back and he says, I was very well aware of that Mishnah, but me dummy, there's no valid analogy. Hasam, in the case of Nitan, Hotzi'ua, the language of the Mishnah is that Bezdin forced a divorce. And Bezdin would not force a divorce unless there was clear-cut evidence. But Hacha, here in the case of someone who divorced his wife because she had a shemra, Hotzia, not Hotzi'ua, but Hotzia. Right? Amotzias Ishta. It wasn't Bezdin that forced him to give a divorce. He made that decision on his own initiative. He wasn't obligated to divorce his wife. He did it out of his own me'atzmo, out of his own decision. There were no witnesses. There was only a call. So therefore, in a case where there's only a call, says Rabba Bar Huna, it's quite possible that if he went and married her, then lo yotzi. We're not going to break up the marriage. And we can't prove anything from the Mishnah because the Mishnah is talking about a case of Hotzi'ua where Bezdin had ample evidence to force a divorce. There were Eidim to testify that she had this adultery relation. So now the Gemara wants to toss it over to the other side. For Rabbi Bar Rav Nachman, he wanted to establish an equation, an analogy to our Mishnah. And based on our Mishnah, he wanted to be poshet the suffix of Rabbi Bar Rav Huna l'chumra that in Konas Yotzi, in the case of Motzi B'Shemra, Masnisa Nami Hotzi Otnan, that the Mishnah Gittin should be amended so that the Girs in the Mishnah in Gittin will reflect the Girs of our Mishnah here, Masechet Yevamot. And in both Mishnayos, it should say Hotzi'ah, which means, I'm sorry. We're going to amend, just 1 second, which Mishnah we're going to amend here? Masnisin Nami Hotzi'ah. Oh, my mistake. Hotzi'ah. We're going to amend our Mishnah here in Yevamot. That he, the husband, based on the rumor that she had this relationship, decided on his own to deliver a divorce. Midaito umirtsoto, he wasn't compelled by Bezdin. There was no edus, there was only a call. And yet, im kansa, if this nitan went ahead and he married her, yotzi. So therefore, we now, according to Rabbi Bar Nachman, have a perfect analogy to our case of Gittin, of Motzias Ishto Michum Shemra, that even in the case of Over V'Kinsa, Tzarech is Chayav Lotziyah. So Gemara asks, Vakati mi dami, I still see a difference between the two cases. Hacha, here in the case where we have a suffix, in Motzi Shemra, in Motzi Mishum Shemra, I should say, right? And now Shuv Kansa, that's Baal. Hasam Boel. In the case of a Baal, right? She was married to him originally. Then we can look the other way if he remarries. But Hassam, meaning in our Mishnah here in Yevamot with regard to a Nitan, we're talking about the Boel. Right? The person was Nitan, that Zinsa Imo. And now, after that Shemra, he wants to remarry her. For a husband to remarry his wife, that's not so disgusting. That's not so repulsive. We can let that marriage, continue to exist. Leave it well enough alone. He's remarrying the woman that he divorced. He was never obligated lechatchila to divorce her. He went and he divorced her. And now he decided he wants to remarry her. So, nishkeferel. We're going to allow it to slip by. But in our Mishnah, we're talking about a nitan. I mean, this guy was suspected of living with her when she was married, and now he's going to marry her. That's davar meguna. The Chacham are going to require that he divorce her. But that's no proof for the case of a husband who wants to remarry his wife because in his mind he worked it out and he's calm and he thinks that the whole business was a rumor and it was not certified. It was Amar Lei, and still Rabbi Bar Hud insists that that's not a valid svara. Shapir Domi Adadi, or Amar Lei's Rabbi Bar Nachman says Shapir Domi Adadi. There is a very fine equation between the two cases. Hacha, in the case of Nitan, Amar Rabbanan lo yichnas. The Rabbanan went very far with this. They said, because you're a Nitan, you're not allowed to marry this woman. Don't go near her. V'imkonas yotzi. And even with the evidence, if you violated our mandate, we will break up the marriage. So it's all based on the fact that the Rabbanan told him lechatchila lo yichnos, and therefore the Rabbanan went a step further, and to strengthen and substantiate their gzera, their requirement that he doesn't marry her, they said if he marries her, we're going to break up the marriage. Hachanami, we should apply the same rule in the case of Motzi Ishto Mishum Shemra. If Amri Rabbana lo yachzir konas yotzi, right? If you don't give any teeth to a gzera when you say lo yachzir. Why? Because he knows that if he goes ahead and marries her, he'll find a Rav, a Masechet Kedushin somewhere out there who doesn't know the facts of the case. He's going to get away with it. So then the whole point of this gzera is meaningless. That the Rabbanan said, lo yachzi, you're not allowed to marry. And the Gemara rejects. Lohi. Hassam, in the case of a nitan, when he goes ahead, he marries her, is a lume alme l'kolam. That actually clinches our suspicion and proves to us that he really had that relationship with her, and that's why he wants so badly to marry her. So then we're going to be machmir, we're going to say kanas yotzi. But hacha, here in the case of a Baal, on the contrary, the very fact that he wants to marry her, that's going to prove and indicate that the Shemra was just a libel and a fabrication, and that rumor was unreliable and untrue. I'm reading Kamle Bikola Velesa. Kamle means he was bodek. The Baal did all his due diligence and he researched it and he hired a private detective. And Sherlock Holmes came back with a clean. He said, no, she did not have that relationship. It's all a libel. Maybe the Ovim spread that message, that rumor. So there's no emes, there's no truth to that call. And the proof is because the husband, remarried him. We assume he's a Yehudi kasher, he would not violate the Torah law. the reason why he remarried us because he was convinced that she was unduly suspected, unjustifiably suspected of having that extramarital relationship. And we'll just finish up here because it's getting late, but he adds the following. He says, Ein adam rokek bekos v'achkach shoseu. Okay, this is the Ritva. Why would a man reject a woman and then remarry? And he rejected her because of the coal that he relied on, and he suspected that she had this relationship. And now he remarries her. It's like spitting in a cup and then drinking it. Vadai, we have to conclude, Badak, he checked it out, Umatza, Shahaya Kol Sheket, that the coal itself was fabrication. That's why he wants to remarry her, and he remarried her. So that is not equal to the case of the Nitan, where the fact that he married her is proof positive that the coal was actually a true coal. Okay, then so this is where we'll stop here. We're up to the Mishnah on Chafei of Hamevi Get Medina Sayyam. This is unbelievable. This Mishnah that we're about to study in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow's Thursday, right? This is a Mishnah straight out of Masechet Gittin. It's like, as I said to you 1,000,001 times, Yevamot is just a potpourri. It's just a melting pot of so many different sugyas of Shas.